The narrative emerging from the men's semifinals offered two distinct pathways to glory, yet they converged on a singular, undeniable truth about elite tennis. When you reach the deep end of a major tournament like this, raw talent takes a backseat to steely nerves, veteran savvy, and unwavering steadiness under fire. Inside the cauldron of Rod Laver Arena, the electricity was palpable as the stakes reached fever pitch with a championship berth hanging in the balance. From the opening serve, the suffocating weight of expectation settled over the court, demanding perfection from the outset. We witnessed an absolute gladiator match in the opening semifinal clash between Carlos Alcaraz and Alexander Zverev, a contest that will surely go down in history. It was a roller coaster of emotion and physical depletion, easily ranking among the most intense showdowns ever witnessed on these blue hard courts. To call this merely a semifinal would be a massive understatement. This was a 5-hour war of attrition where sheer willpower and survival instincts were tested to the breaking point. Both competitors were forced to dig deeper than they ever thought possible, stretching their physical and mental capacities to the absolute edge. When the dust finally settled, it was the Spanish phenom Carlos Alcaraz, who remained standing, clinching the decisive fifth set 7-5. With that gritty triumph, he stamped his ticket to the final Sunday, marking his debut appearance in the championship match of the Australian Open. The Spaniard stormed out of the gates with supreme self-belief dictating play with the ferocious high-octane style that propelled him to the summit of the world rankings. He looked every bit the alpha on the court, commanding the baseline with punishing ground strokes. Conversely, Zverev adopted a more measured approach early on, playing solid, but perhaps slightly tentative tennis. The opening stanza was a grueling physical affair with little to separate them, yet Alcaraz proved to be sharper when the pressure ramped up in the critical exchanges. Finding an extra gear in the clutch, Alcaraz snatched the first set, establishing a commanding precedent for the drama to come. He seemed to settle into an even better rhythm during the second set, looking increasingly dangerous, though the German refused to let his belief waver for a second. However, the complexion of the match began to undergo a subtle transformation as the third set got underway. While Alcaraz maintained his aggressive posture, the contest suddenly pivoted on a dime, introducing a dramatic twist that threatened to derail his entire campaign. Disaster struck in the form of severe cramping for the young Spaniard. Initially, he attempted to mitigate the issue, frantically stretching during the change of ends and trying to keep the rallies brief. He was forced to abandon his legs, relying almost exclusively on his explosive hands to fire winners from a standing start. Regrettably, the physical distress only compounded as the set wore on, leaving him visibly hobbled. Zverev, sensing blood in the water, pounced on the vulnerability immediately. The German claimed the third set, and in the blink of an eye, the momentum had swung violently in the opposite direction. By the time they entered the fourth frame, Alcaraz was in obvious agony, his body rebelling against the grueling conditions. His mobility was severely compromised to the extent that merely shuffling between points appeared to be a painful ordeal, let alone chasing down balls. And yet, in the face of such debilitating discomfort, he absolutely refused to wave the white flag. As the match boiled down to the wire in the fifth set, Alcaraz summoned a reserve of grit and mental fortitude that was nothing short of awe-inspiring. Battling through the seizing muscles and the searing pain, he somehow discovered a pathway to elevate his game once more. Throwing caution to the wind, he unleashed a barrage of fearless forehand, stepping into the court and trusting his muscle memory over his legs. He simply would not allow victory to slip through his fingers. But for Alcaraz, this triumph signifies something far profounder than just a Sunday slot. This win secures his maiden voyage to the Australian Open final, ticking off yet another massive achievement in a career that is rapidly becoming the stuff of legend. With this result, he has now successfully reached the championship round at all 4 of the sport's major tournaments. He achieved this feat in the most theatrical fashion imaginable, a 5-hour marathon, a literal fight against his own physiology, culminating in a 5th set climax where a young warrior simply refused to yield. Turning our attention to the second semifinal, Novak Djokovic engaged in his own 5-set odyssey, overcoming a world-class adversary playing at the absolute zenith of his abilities. By outlasting his opponent, the Serbian legend punched his ticket to yet another major final, setting up a blockbuster showdown with Carlos Alcaraz. History beckons loudly, as Djokovic now stands on the precipice of capturing an elusive, record-extending 25th Grand Slam title. The atmosphere was thick with gravity from the moment the first ball was struck. Jannik Sinner entered the arena arguably as the tournament's most formidable player, carrying a wave of momentum. The Italian looked cool, calm, and collected, buoyed by recent successes against the veteran. Sinner commenced proceedings with tremendous authority, striking the ball cleanly off both sides, particularly that lethal backhand, and going toe-to-toe with Djokovic in the punishing early rallies. Sinner's delivery was impeccable, his court positioning relentlessly offensive, and his self-assurance was radiating off him in waves. As the contest deepened, it evolved into a sophisticated game of kinetic chess. Djokovic sought to elongate the points, probing Sinner's patience and dragging him into awkward geometries designed to dismantle his rhythm. Sinner countered with audacious shot-making, holding his ground inside the baseline and refusing to be bullied. When the Italian surged ahead early on, there was a palpable sense that we were witnessing a changing of the guard, a genuine new era moment unfolding before our eyes. It looked for a while like the young pretender was destined to dethrone the king on the very court where he has reigned supreme for over a decade. However, Novak Djokovic has constructed an entire legacy on surviving precisely these kinds of existential threats. Gradually, with surgical precision, the veteran began to shift the tides of the match. His return started finding the toes, his movement became more fluid, and his uncanny knack for absorbing pace and redirecting it began to chip away at Sinner's resolve. By the time we arrived at a deciding fifth set, this clash had already cemented its status as an instant classic in Melbourne Park history. The sheer physical cost of the battle was etched clearly on both men's faces as fatigue set in. Each service hold became a monumental struggle, and every breakpoint felt like a hinge upon which history itself was turning. Yet this is the deep water where Djokovic distinguishes himself from virtually every other mortal to ever wield a racket. In that final shootout, the weight of Djokovic's vast experience proved insurmountable. He elevated his game at the critical junctures, locating unreturnable first serves under duress, and navigating the high pressure points with absolute mental clarity. While Sinner produced moments of incandescent brilliance, Djokovic countered with suffocating control. When the Italian pushed hard, the Serb simply absorbed the energy and sent it back with interest. It wasn't about style points, it was about ruthless efficiency. Even at 38 years of age, Djokovic moved with deliberate intent, defended with supreme tennis, IQ, and chose his attacking moments with surgical precision. His anticipatory skills were otherworldly late in the game, reading Sinner's patterns like a book, shutting down angles and extracting errors when the tension was highest. When the final break of serve finally arrived, it felt less like a surprise and more like an inevitability. As Djokovic served it out to seal the victory, the raw emotion was unmistakable. This was far more than just another notch in the win column. This was a defiant statement to himself, his competition, and the global tennis community that he remains the man to beat, still lethal, still present, and still capable of dismantling the world's best over the grueling 5-set distance. This monumental effort propels Djokovic into yet another Grand Slam final, adding another chapter to a career that already borders on the mythological, and the prize, the ultimate showdown, a championship bout against Carlos Alcaraz. This is the dream fixture the entire sporting world has been clamoring for. It is the classic duality of youth against experience, raw power clashing with clinical precision, the heralded future of the sport colliding with its greatest living architect. Alcaraz enters the arena having survived his own trial by fire, demonstrating immense heart resilience and physical bravery to get here. Djokovic steps onto the court having reaffirmed that when the lights are brightest, he remains perhaps the most indomitable competitor in the history of athletics. That is the incredible story of what Day 13 at the 2026 Australian Open has gifted us. So who is your pick to lift the Norman Brooks Challenge Cup? Drop your predictions for the Australian Open final in the comments below. If you enjoyed this update, please hit that like button and subscribe for more coverage. We will catch you tomorrow for the big one.